Welcome to TradeServe. This is a tutorial on how to build your selling price. Now, a lot of times this is a profit and loss statement we're looking at. A lot of times we look at the profit and loss statement and we see what we're left over with. In this case, we're left over with 59.3% as a gross margin, or $167.59 as what's called gross profit. But we need to be in the 60% range in order to be a healthy service company. So how do you get there? How do you build a price so that you know what you're going to have at the end? Let me show you how to do this. You have to start with your known labor and your material. You put them together. And in this case, we're using $60 in labor, which are the gross wages, which is assuming approximately $30 an hour. But there are some other associated payroll costs with that. For putting together a payroll, there's some taxes and other items, and then there's some benefits that are associated. You want to pay your technician, and so the total expense is what you want to use. In this case, $78, and then there's some material expenses associated with building, a product or a service. So in this example, we're using $35, but we then know in this example that there's another $2.63 in taxes. And we're going to take an early discount payment at our supplier and get 2% there. So there's a 70-cent credit. So this product has $36.93 associated with it in material. So you take these two, but how do you use that, come up with the desired gross margin? How do you get your net sales, and how do you get your advertised price of $322? How does that figure? Well, the labor and materials are your variable expenses that go into building this product or the service, and there may be some others, but we're just going to stick with the labor and materials. So let's use the labor as example. You take the $78, and if our margin that we want to shoot for is 67%, we take 1 minus 0.67, which is then 0.33, and we divide that by the expense of $78. So we take $78 divided by 1 minus 0.67, and we come up with $236. That becomes our labor charge over here. Then we do the same thing for the material. We decide how much material is, what our cost is, and we decide what desired margin we want. We want a 20% profit margin. We take the or gross margin. We take the $36.93 and we divide it by 1 minus 0.2, which then is 0.8. And so we take $36.93 divided by 0.8, and that gives us $46.16. So we have our labor, we have our material. If there's any other charges that are down here, other direct expenses that are associated just with a job, not your indirect expenses, not things like office labor, but just those direct field expenses, the variable expenses. And we add those together along with any planned discounts. So discounting's not bad unless you don't plan on the discount. So this is very important. So you plan your discounts. You put them right into your advertised price. That's the difference between your net sales. A lot of contractors will work off of net sales and then take the discounts. What you want to do is plan your advertised price. So in this case, we have our labor charges, we have our material charges, we have our discounts that were planned, and this becomes what we advertise. Then the customer gives us $40 in discounts in this example, and we come up with our net sales. This is what we're actually expecting to receive from the customer, in this example, $282. Then we subtract the $78, and we subtract the $36, and then those two added together are $114. That becomes what's called cost of goods sold, and that leaves us with $167, or 59%. So from this example, our target was 62%, but we ended up with 59%. Why is that? Well, we had 67% on labor, but we only had 20% on material. So we know before we ever sell this product that we're below our target margin. So we would have to change something. What could we change? Well, we could change this 20 to a 30%, or we could change this 67% to 70%, or something like that, until we get into the 60% gross margin. So this is how TradeServe builds its price behind the scenes. All you do is you enter in your labor and your materials and it automatically calculates this for every single product over and over again. So you just say, I want a 62% margin, and bang, you get a 62% margin. I hope this has been helpful. Have a great day. Thanks.